So, tell me something terrible. I don't realize how deep my voice is until I sing in public. And I'm like, I can't sing with people. I just sound like I'm like grumbling next to people. I feel like you've stood.
You bring us down a whole octave.
I tell you what, I don't realize it until it's like 80% old ladies.
Yeah.
And I go to sing and I'm like, I don't think I have that deep of a voice.
No, you do.
Like in general. And then
I know I have that deep of a voice because I was the only chick in band whose voice echoed off the ceilings of Ellis Island.
Our voices are the distance apart most normal couples' voices are.
They're just an octave lower than everybody else's.
They're just shifted.
That's fine.
So that I feel like my voice is a normal dude's voice.
I can shift into that higher pitched customer voice if you like, a little bit more feminine.
You sound like a bitch.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We don't need Karen with Karen over here.
No.
Karen with a C, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, there's a reason why people didn't like it when 19-year-old tiny little me walked up as like the manager.
Oh, Family Dollar.
Yeah. And I already give off the please don't fuck with me. I'm in a bad mood. I am taking 3 classes this semester and I've worked 44 hours a week and just unloaded a 1,600 piece truck. You can fuck right off. You're not getting your methamphetamines until tomorrow.
It's because you're a woman.
Also that, yeah.
That was part of the big problem too.
No. Yeah. Oh, that's what the problem at the scrapyard was as well.
Yeah.
As
anyway.
That doesn't matter.
Did you want to whinge about the past a bit more?
Yes, please.
I don't. I might
Fucking
edit all this out.
patriarchy.
I might edit all this out.
That's fine.
Just leave the saltiness at the door. Throw it over your shoulder for good luck.
Right shoulder.
Is it?
I think so.
I like how you did that over your left shoulder.
I did it with my right hand.
You did over my right shoulder from my perspective.
Hi, I'm Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Scott.
And you're listening to Tell Me Something Terrible.
Yeah, you are.
And we're starting off on the right foot.
Yep.
Or the left foot.
I was going to say, don't ask her which one's her right foot. It's the one with the, what are those?
This one is
that one over there is Lilo and Stitch.
And this one is Lilo and Stitch, yeah.
Okay.
Ohana means family, and then the Ravenclaw traits. But they're both blue.
They're same height, too.
I don't care. My socks don't have to match, but they do have to be the same height.
Her socks don't have to match. Her socks never match.
Yeah, no. But they do have to be the same height, and then the seam has to go very specifically over a certain spot of my toes because
also,
I have sensory issues as a grown-ass adult.
I just wear black socks that are all the same length.
They are.
But I do match brands.
Yes.
I'm not going to wear a Dickies sock and a Fruit of the Loom sock on the same day. Like, I'm not a...
Well, and they have those little, like, elastic, too, in the different parts, so it's going to affect how they feel on your feet. They have to be the same kind of
The
sock.
Dickies socks are they're the greatest. I need more of those.
More Dickies?
Yeah.
You need some more Dickies in your life?
You know, you can relate.
Yes, I can.
Anyway, did you want to do a podcast?
Yeah, we can do a podcast.
Great. You said this one's 9 hours long, so we should probably start.
It is 4, back to my normal length ones. Okay. It's 4 and...
Nobody cares how long the pages are.
This
all comes down to how much I interrupt you.
Yes.
So please, enthrall me so I shut the fuck up.
Awesome. So we're going to bring it back to Michigan. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
And these are technically murders.
Okay, we got an asterisk. Not?
I mean, we'll get to it.
Okay.
So Detroit was thriving.
So we're not in the present day.
No. It's getting way better. If you really, like, I'm in the Abandoned Michigan group, and I'm seriously, I don't think they want outside links posted, but the 2 latest ologies were really good. One's a Detroitology, and she talks to an expert and how it kind of got railed, and now it's coming back, and they're, like, working on it, and he talked about, like, the highway, and then she talked to an expert who's, I think, a professor at MSU that goes over abandoned buildings. So they're both really interesting. Yeah. So if you're a Michigander, or really anybody, listen to those ologies.
Okay.
Shamelessly plug Allie Ward.
She'd probably be okay with that.
Yep. She is the pod dad. So anyway, Detroit was thriving. Uh-huh. Over the course of the 1920s, the Penobscot, Fisher, and General Motors buildings were erected. And the Detroit, Windsor, and Ambassador bridges, like the tunnel and the bridge, were built to access Canada. Mm-hmm. And apparently, some of the first mobile homes were being produced in the city by the Covered Wagon Company, who manufactured covered wagon trailer coaches.
Okay.
Yeah, so little motorhomes.
So like Oregon Trail style?
Yeah, but like the 1920s version of that.
Okay. When you say covered wagon, I think
no, yeah, that's exactly it's exactly it. Like a wagon that you're gonna like. Yeah, it's a mobile home.
Yeah.
So, but they were fancy because they're coaches.
Ooh.
So by 1929, Detroit manufactured over 5.3 million cars. So for perspective, the U.S. auto industry was producing 50% more vehicles per capita than it was than it was producing in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. So 50% more.
50 times.
Yeah, 50 times.
Those 50%, are very different numbers.
So 50% more essentially productive than they were today.
Okay.
So capitalism was thriving. And then...
As it does.
Yes, because this is the 20s. Mm-hmm. What comes next?
The Great Depression?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tuesday, October...
The Roaring 20s, the Whimpering 30s. Do they actually call them that? They didn't.
No, but they should. Mm-hmm. The 30s needed a marketing team.
They did. The Dirty 30s.
Ooh, no. A lot of really horrible things happened in the 30s.
Yeah. That's fine. We're coming back around to them. Don't worry.
No, we're cramming we're cramming the 19s, 20s, and 30s and 40s all into one decade.
Well, we're in the now, here and now.
Yeah,
time period. Yeah,
we've sped things up.
We don't have 3 decades to experience a lifetime of emotions.
No.
I need them in 30-second TikToks until it gets banned.
Please.
Wait, how long? TikTok's gonna be like 3 minutes now. Do you ever commit to a TikTok and then you look down and the bar's like 10% of the way through? You're like, how long is it? Is this a YouTube video? The fuck?
There's 10-minute TikToks too.
What?
Yeah. Some verified users get 10-minute TikToks, but some of them are really content creators are nice and they actually put the length of the video up in the corner, which is nice.
Yeah, don't do that. All right, I haven't noticed that. I got the wormhole today of Adam Sandler got some Lifetime Achievement Award. Did you see that?
Your hero? No.
Anyway, and like a bunch of people, Buscemi gave speeches.
Wow.
What's his face? Who's the You Can Do It guy?
Oh, God.
Rob Schneider.
Oh, shit. He went off the right-wing deep end. Rob Schneider went...
Did he?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, all these guys gave speeches. So like they're... I like they all independently popped up on my timeline, and I'm like, I don't even follow Adam Sandler on TikTok. But anyway,
well, it's because TikTok and their facial recognition, and then watching the pupils.
Yes.
God, fucking bullshit.
But no, so
did you see any of that Senate hearing?
Yeah,
what a fucking embarrassment.
Anyway,
there's like 2 senators that had 1% of a clue.
Yes,
and I just wanted to vomit everywhere. I hate it here. Anyway. Let's get back to a century ago. Yeah, let's talk about the last Great Depression.
Let's go back 100 years. Things have got to be better, right?
So, Tuesday, October 29th, 1929 happens, and the New York Stock Exchange...
What year?
1929.
Okay.
So the New York Stock Exchange completely collapsed.
Okay.
Don't worry, guys. We have the FDIC, and they had to rapidly implement a whole bunch of policies to stop this from happening again this week. Literally right now. Bunch of banks collapsed and everyone lost everything.
A bank run. Yes.
Yep. Bank run. I'm sweaty. So
that's when what's his face gave a fireside speech. Is that FDR?
Yes.
And the very first one was about the bank run.
Yeah.
That happened 100 years ago.
And we're not quite 100 years ago. We're a little bit, faster than the 100-year cycle. It was 93 years ago. Anyway, everyone lost everything except for inside traders, true to the American dream.
Yeah.
So by September 1930, millions, like 15 million of Americans were unemployed with no unemployment compensation because it didn't exist yet.
That seems like a problem.
Yes. So the production of cars in Detroit fell to 3.36 million from the 5.3 million.
Okay. And that's not like...
There's a smaller number. I'll get to it.
Yeah.
So,
but that's like still sustainable-ish.
Sure. Half of his workers were gone. So got unemployed. Mm-hmm. So workers had lost their jobs, and Detroit created places for unemployed people to register in 1930. So this is like a year later before they were like, oh, we should help these people. So this was so people could get some help. So by September 25th of 1930, the first day of registering, there was 19,412 people registered as unemployed.
Okay.
Just Detroit.
Okay.
By the 26th, the number had...
The number doesn't really mean anything to me,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it's relative to the other numbers
there was around 1 point something million people in Detroit at the time.
Okay.
And then by the 26th, the number had increased to over 46,000.
Okay.
And by the end of September, there were over 75,000 people in just the city of Detroit that had registered as unemployed. These are the people that registered, not even the ones who didn't. So this is like a tenth of the city.
Okay.
Just a year later.
All right.
So by 1931, car production had dropped to 1.3 million, and unemployment kept rising. Yeah. Well, so you're like, okay, in a year, like it cut back by like a third.
Yeah.
No.
I was going to say,
in 2 years, it was.
So far, we're fine.
Yeah, 2 years, it was like let's cut this production by 90%.
Big chunk, but you can retain 80% of your people. No, now you're.
You would think they could retain 80% of their people, but Henry Ford is one of the biggest assholes that have ever lived. Do you know much about Henry Ford?
You know I don't.
Oh, God. You're going to learn a little bit about Henry Ford.
You seem like you're a fan.
Oh, such a good guy. So Detroit saw an influx of help from the government, private citizens, and businesses. The Red Cross would send fabric to help provide to make clothes. A small apple exchange was created for unemployment to hawk apples to make some money.
Okay.
Yep.
I love a good apple exchange.
Mm-hmm. I think they started out with 150 some people that did it, and then within a year there were 700 apple vendors all throughout on the corner, and they would rotate them through. It was a big involved thing, so that not everybody wound up with the best corner. So they kind of tried to keep it even and fair.
To give away free apples?
No, they would sell them. So people on unemployment would spend $2 to buy themselves a cart.
And
then they would sell them.
Gotcha.
And there was up to 700 apple vendors throughout the whole city, and they kind of moved them around.
I thought you meant they were giving, they were donating apples.
No, they were creating jobs. And then after a few years, there was only 50 of them left.
You needed to be the guy selling fucking hot dogs back then.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Those Coney dogs.
A sea full of apple salesmen. Be the hot dog salesman.
# goals. So there's also clothing drives that were held. Doctors were giving away free health care. Unused shops and buildings that had shut down, from the Fisher Company and stuff like that, they were being outfitted to house homeless and the jobless. Tents were donated. Landlords were putting rents on hold under the promise that the government would be creating unemployment compensation. Mm-hmm. But that unemployment compensation never came. So eventually people started losing their homes.
Okay. You'd expect at that point.
Yep. Acreages were donated to help create gardens. Surplus crops were donated to Detroit to offset hunger. And then canned food drives were held, and local senators and business people were donating food baskets. So everybody stepped up where they could.
Chipping in a little.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter, because by the end of 1930, 4 people a day were dying of starvation in Detroit alone.
Oh, shit. Okay. I thought you were going to say 4 people at that point had died, not a day.
No, a day. There was
it's going to
nothing.
add up in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We're talking 1,500 a year.
Good way to drop that unemployment number.
It's a morbid way to look at it.
We saw it happen with COVID, with 1 million Americans die, and then they're like, we don't know why nobody wants to work. Well, I don't know. Big chunk of the workforce died.
Yep, that's true.
People died, right?
Yeah. And then the younger people moved into those positions, and then, it filtered up, and then everyone's like, I don't want to work at McDonald's anymore.
Yeah. Because all the places that are hiring are the people that pay $7.40 an hour and have to put up with bullshit. And then you guys kept telling them, hey, maybe you guys should go get a better job. When the old people died, the young people went and got better jobs.
This is all Taco Bell's fault.
Fucking Taco Bell.
That one rant I sent you was so beautiful. Anyway.
They still haven't opened their lobbies. I get it. He was coming from a very valid position.
Right. Oh, if I get Taco Bell, I go to my work and eat it. I don't eat it in my car.
Did you get that Taco Bell that TikTok that I sent you of him being used as anti-Chinese propaganda on the news? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nobody cares about TikTok. Read your story.
Anyway.
If you want to do a podcast talking about TikToks we saw, that's probably already a TikTok podcast.
Probably. Hard shift. New direction with the podcast.
Yeah. We're just going to do
we wouldn't even have to change the T. It would just be tell me something TikTok.
Yeah. And we'll just, for 30 minutes, just scroll TikToks and show them to each other like what people do with their friends now.
Ugh. That sounds awful.
Ick.
Go touch some grass. So, because
we're not endorsing pot use. Just go outside.
Yeah, and touch that grass, the blades of grass.
Yeah. If you're on the other grass, it'll feel cooler, but do whatever you want.
Yeah.
We're not here to judge.
So because there were 4 people a day dying of starvation and an increasing unemployment rate.
Yeah. Decreasing.
People, or decreasing, depending on how you're looking at it.
Yep.
People took to marching and protests across the country.
Okay.
And to help further the cause, a little film company called the Workers' Film and Photo League, later known as the Film and Photo League after 1933, took it upon themselves to document the breadlines and protests, and later the police and government brutality.
Oh, this is going to go well.
Uh-huh. So an American lawyer writing in early 1932 said that, quote, police brutality grows out of the institution of private property under which one class in society lives in luxury at the expense of the great mass of workers who are compelled to live in a state of poverty, wretchedness, and despair.
That doesn't translate at all to today. Nope.
Nope.
Can't relate.
Glad the past is behind us.
Yep.
So an expert in early documentaries... I have to show you a TikTok that has a graph.
You don't have to show me.
Sorry. These are the things that fuel my hate fire. It is astronomical. The top 1% of the population that owns the wealth. Okay. Wouldn't fit on this man's chart. He had to put the 1%, like a little dude representing the 1%, and it was 10 bars just setting offset compared to literally the rest of the country.
Okay.
It's fine.
In 1932?
No, right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So, like right now. So, an expert in early documentaries, this company coming in, and international support for strikers, the Workers' International Relief, this is like a separate organization, who got their modest start in Russia in 1905 when there was a government overthrowing. And they produced some of Russia's first films and created a short film called Storm of Asia, which was dubbed the first film to thrust deeply into the chaos of imperialistic politics.
Okay.
So we have the WIR and we have the film company, the Film League.
Yep.
It's the WIR spread internationally and popped up in Germany to create non-theatrical films highlighting the workers' point of views. So they are a human rights activist group that is an expert in filming documentaries, and they met up with the Film League. So by the 1920s, the WIR had made its way to the U.S. and collided with the stock market crash and the Great Depression and the Workers' Film and Photo League.
Okay.
So they became allies in the workers' rights cause.
Sounds like a natural pairing.
Yes. Okay. So in 1930... I promise there's a point to that little side blurb.
That's fine. I assume you know how to, you've written a paper too here.
Yeah. So in 1930, a breakthrough in production was made where the filming crew captured a communist-led demonstration of the unemployed in New York City on March 6th. So this demonstration was one of the largest gatherings in U.S. history, cramming people into Union Square. So for the most part, news coverage of the event was suppressed, but Workers' Film and Photo League was there, collecting video to be used in short newsreels. These newsreels became pivotal in the workers' rights movement, and by May, a film critic was stressing the importance of this type of documentation, stating, "I want once more to emphasize that news film is the important thing, that the capitalist class knows that there are certain things that it cannot afford to have shown, and it is afraid of some pictures. Films being used against the workers like police clubs, only more subtly, like in the reactionary press. The capitalist class fears pictures and prevents us from seeing records of events like the March 6th unemployment demonstration."
Okay.
So they are taking the whole point of these two groups is to take the right, like the capitalists' propaganda that they have that's like showing people like what they want their perspective to be. And they're going to then take film and flip that and use their like quote unquote weapon against them and show them what's actually happening in the streets.
The reality opposed to the forced
narrative.
Perception.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the economic rift and the unemployment numbers grew and people were dying. And so mass protests and demonstrations were being planned and put on by the baby union organizations, because this is like early, right?
Yeah,
like
small, not like actual infants.
Yes, not actual infants. Like they're like young, baby, haven't been really long.
Baby unions don't exist yet.
No.
Still.
Not yet. So, I lost my spot. the baby union. I froze.
Dramatic
I panicked. So the baby union organizations that were trying to get a foothold across the country, they were helping to organize as many of these protests and marches as they can.
Okay.
So on March 6th, 1932, a coast-to-coast demonstration march was scheduled to kick off, planned by the Trade Union Unity League, the Communist Party, which, let's be honest, is just the modern-day socialists, and the newly formed unemployed councils. I know communism and socialism is different, but like the communists were fighting for the unions. Like,
or I don't know much about the Communist Party of the 1930s. I'm going to say they had a bad rap.
Well, yeah, I think rightfully so.
Yeah.
But I think mostly it's because Americans still to this day get communism, and I don't want to be a communist country. Please, I'm not a communist. Like, no.
You're going to get us put on a list.
I would, yeah.
Nobody listens to this podcast already. Don't let people think we're communists.
Socialist capitalism is kind of the way to go. Anyway, you're not here for my economic policies or what I give a shit about. I think people get communism and fascism mixed up. Okay. That's how communism was always presented to us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of communist countries are fascist countries. So, again, context is key and nuance is important, and we are lacking all of that in modern society.
Well, they were here until they got some, video footage of it.
Well, and I think the problem, too, is that, Lee Harvey Oswald? Yes. The guy who shot Kennedy.
Lee Oswald. That's not right at all.
He was a communist. So, like, there's just, like, a lot of, like, negative, probably rightfully so, media. I'm just going to stick my foot in my mouth, stop talking about it. The communists were fighting.
Tell me how much you love the communists.
The communists were fighting for workers' rights.
Okay.
And also the newly formed unemployed councils. So millions of people across the country participated. 100,000 people gathered in a rally in Detroit alone.
Holy shit.
Yes. But naturally...
Well, none of them had to go to work, so...
Yeah, you had nothing better to do. You were literally fighting for your life.
Thankfully, they had the day off.
Yeah. So...
That's a joke. I feel for these people, I do.
Yeah.
They're all dead by now, but... If they were 30 in 1923...
Yeah, they're dead by now.
Yeah. Not a lot of 18 people alive. Like 1890, whatever.
No. So naturally, though, the Detroit police broke up the protests using clubs and arresting people. And so Detroit's network of unemployed councils, which made up over 80 different chapters. So this is the new organization. Book. Yeah.
That's a terrible joke. You don't have to agree to that.
So they decided that a new march should be planned for March 7th, which is a cold and bitter day.
A new march for March 7th.
Yes, so they're going to do a new demonstration.
I don't think that's why they called that one March, but that's fine.
March is the March of Munches.
Sorry, what?
March is the March of Marches.
I think you said the March of Munches.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
I have the munches. So anyway,
March is the March of Munches. Okay.
So they decided that they would plan a new march for the following day.
For Munches.
For Munches. So it was a cold and bitter day, often described as the coldest of the year.
March 7th?
March 7th.
That was like 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's fine.
When do we have that ice storm?
Fuck if I know.
Like that year, March 7th.
I get it. Early March in
32
Michigan
was
get cold. Yes.
Yeah. So with 2/3 of Henry Ford's employees without a job, the plan was to start in Detroit and march to Dearborn, stopping at the Ford Motor Company's River Rogue complex.
Okay.
Or is it Rouge? I think it's Rouge.
Like Nain Rouge?
Yes.
Not Rogue.
Totally Rouge.
Yeah.
The River Rouge complex, which I think had caught on fire at some point.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw that name.
Did you ever see that new Star Wars movie, Rouge One? Just asking. I love Moulin Rouge. Have you watched that movie lately? Ewan McGregor. Is he in both those movies? No, he's just in Moulin Rouge.
He is in Star Wars, though.
But not that Star Wars.
Ewan McGregor is my pass.
Is he?
If I ever get a chance, I'm taking Ewan McGregor and Keira Knightley.
You don't get two?
Yes, I do. One for each gender. You can have 2.
I don't want.
You can have 1 for each if you'd like.
I want 1 for each. Thank you for that option, though. Appreciate it.
So anyway, their plan was to stop at the Ford
and you
Motor.
Break Keira Knightley. She's like 100 pounds. You're way too muscular for her.
I have been lifting. So anyway, they're stopping at the River Rogue complex. But Dearborn is where Henry Ford himself lives. So they were crossing into his territory.
Okay.
And I love the fact.
Did he have an army of Model Ts ready to mobilize?
No, but he did have servicemen.
Of course he did.
Yes.
He was rich.
Mm-hmm. So I just love the fact that Dearborn is now one of the largest Muslim communities in our country, which would just piss Henry Ford off to no end. Just, it makes me happy. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So anyway, the unemployed councils and the United Autos workers had...
The UAW.
Yep, the UAW had...
Still around.
Yes. They had 14 demands.
14?
14.
Okay.
We're going to get to
it. It's a long list.
Yes, it is. It's a paragraph long.
That's fine. Jobs
for all the laid-off Ford workers, immediate payment of 50% of full wages that they'd lost, a 7-hour workday without a reduction in pay, slowing down of the deadline speed-ups,
okay,
2 15-minute rest periods.
That seems reasonable.
Because oh my fucking God. Google it. I looked it up.
Uh-huh.
There is no legal mandatory breaks in the state of Michigan.
Really?
If you have a union, there is. If you are underneath the age of 18, you do. Anybody else? Fuck you. Better have a nice boss.
I thought if it was over 8 hours, it was a half hour.
Absolutely not. I got told by my last boss, she doesn't have to give us breaks when we are employees instead of independent contractors.
Who knew?
And then I Googled it, and I was like, that's fucked.
Yeah.
Thanks, boss. Anyway, now I'm my own boss.
And you're not bitter about it. That's the best part.
No. Well, when you get a letter from a lawyer, you get a little bitter. So they also wanted no discrimination against... They use the N-word, but black people, in jobs. And then relief, like welfare and medical services. Free medical aid in Ford Hospital for employed and unemployed Ford workers and families.
Okay.
5 tons of coal and coke for the winter.
Coke?
Yeah. You know, Coke.
Coca-Cola?
Coca-Cola.
Okay, good.
Pop. The abolition of the service.
What a weird demand. But I guess
Coke had cocaine in it back in the 1920s.
I guess if you're working 7 hours straight with like not even a break at this point, you're like, I need something.
I could use some caffeine during the coldest months of the year.
I get coffee's
that'd be nice.
expensive. Give me that Coke.
And Coke back then had Coke in it.
Still?
So, I don't know when they took it out. I would imagine 1930s.
I'd imagine by then they took it out.
No. They probably took it out in the 50s. Google it while I read.
No. I'll get distracted.
So they also wanted the abolition of Ford's servicemen, which is his private army of spies and thugs that was led by the notorious Harry Bennett, who we will get to.
Okay.
So they also...
he's just a mobster.
Yeah, so...
With slightly
I wish he
cleaner
was
hands.
just a mobster.
Like a slightly cleaner hands. Worse hands? We'll figure it out.
Just wait.
Greasy hands. Just kidding. He hasn't touched a car in years.
No. So they also wanted no foreclosures on homes of Ford workers so that they don't lose their houses.
Okay.
And then immediate payment of a lump sum of $50 for winter relief, and then full wages for part-time workers, which was part of Kellogg's cereals. Their last strike that they had was completely fucked because it was like there were 2 tiers of workers there, and they were kind of like part-time and then primary or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And the people underneath were promised, they're like, you guys get paid less, but as these people above you retire, you can get to move into their jobs and you can get the raises.
Yeah.
Except they didn't do that. They just hired more part-time workers to fill the full-time workers, and no one got bumped up.
And got the benefits.
And no one, and there was egregious safety measures. Like people losing arms and shit. So maybe we should still boycott Kellogg. Anyway.
Okay.
Boycott Ford too after you listen to
cereal.
this. So they wanted full wages for part-time workers, the abolition of the graft system of hiring, I don't know what that is, and then the right to organize. Because back then people didn't have a right to organize. Because, we do now.
That was educational decree number something. I remember from Harry Potter.
666.
No, Harry Potter. It was like the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah, no more than groups of 3.
Yeah.
No, the organizers talking about unions.
Yeah.
So they wanted the right to be able to organize a union.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not applicable at all to today. So others also showed up to this demonstration addressing other human rights concerns as well, with a sea of signs held by protesters, some calling for the freedom of some black youths who were wrongfully convicted and in jail, and some were holding signs for China to stop the sale of scrap iron to Japan, who was using it to attack Chinese people. So It's just everything was kind of coming to a head. Mm-hmm. The rest of the signs were adorned with phrases like, give us work, and we want bread, not crumbs, and tax the rich and feed the poor.
Robin Hood style.
Because time is a flat circle.
Somewhat.
So Ford took personal offense to the demonstration, saying that the unemployed created their own misery by not working hard enough. Except he's the fuck who fired them all.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a problem, but okay.
So Ford, who's the richest man in the country, is saying that these people who are starving to death are not working hard enough. Ford, who created the assembly line to quicken the speed of his workers. Ford, who sat in his mansion on a hill. Ford, who had a photo of Hitler on his desk, and Hitler had a corresponding photo of him.
That's cute. They're like pen pals.
They were. Ford, the eugenicist, and the inspiration for the man behind the biggest mass murder in all of history, the Holocaust.
Oh, okay.
Because you do know that eugenics is an American idea, right?
I don't know its origin story.
It was presented in London in 1880s.
Okay.
And then some Americans went, like that idea, and brought it over here. Mm-hmm. And those Americans were people like Ford and the Lindenbergs and all of them. And then Hitler was friends with Ford and was like your style, fam. And then the Holocaust happened.
There's probably a few steps in between there, but yeah.
That's just like a short synopsis.
I see
of
that,
it.
yeah. Yeah, that is a hyper SparkNotes version.
Yeah, so in case you didn't know, now you know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the march went smoothly as I told you you'd hate him. He's a prick. He's awful. So the march went smoothly
Hitler?
as...
Yeah, I've heard bad things.
No, Ford. But yes, Hitler too. So the march went smoothly as an estimated 3,000 to 5,000 protesters marched through the streets of Detroit. Mm-hmm. But as soon as they hit the borders of Dearborn...
Of April. Sorry.
The borders of April. Of Dearborn, Mayor Clyde Ford...
Oh, his last name sounds familiar.
Yeah. His cousin.
Yeah, one of these guys is going to be president at some point, too.
So, nepotism at its finest. Mayor Ford called in reinforcements in the form of the Dearborn police, lobbing tear gas. Because again, time is a flat circle.
That's why it's America's pastime, baseball. You know, you get the clubs with the bats.
They do. They're hitting people with billy clubs, too.
Yeah, and you get chucking tear gas. You know, it's just training, future generations of cops and soldiers.
Yeah.
That's why the grenades the size
baseball
of
players.
That's why grenades are the size of baseballs.
I'm going to throw up. So anyway, one officer also shot into the crowd. So the protesters responded with, I think they backpedaled to a field and armed themselves with stones and clumps of frozen mud. Because it's March in Michigan.
They're bringing a rock to a gunfight, literally.
So they forced the police to...
cow pies.
That would be more effective.
Yeah, just throwing them like Frisbees at the police.
So it's the world's best version of extreme Frisbee.
Ultimate Frisbee.
Ultimate Frisbee, yeah. I know sports. So anyway, let's
not call that a sport. Just kidding.
This forced police officers to retreat. So
our guns won't work against these rocks. Back up, fellas.
Don't worry.
Good for the police for retreating and not charging with their guns.
Yeah.
So far.
So they retreated.
I'm not saying that they're going to be completely cleansed of this sin.
So anyway, yeah, they retreated. That was nice of them. They retreated to
get tanks.
Regroup.
Okay. Good.
So there's no tanks yet. They didn't militarize the police like that until the 80s. That was the 80s.
Okay. See, and look so far we're fine. Regroup.
No tanks. So the marchers continued forward to the entrance of Ford's like Dearborn complex, advancing nearly a mile.
Okay.
But The police had regrouped at the entrance. They were now reinforced with the Dearborn Fire Department and the aforementioned servicemen. So not tanks.
No.
No.
Hoses.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. So here's where the firefighters turned their hoses on the unarmed marchers with 2 fire engines perched on an overpass, spraying the crowd with cold water on an already literally freezing cold day.
Terrific.
And it only escalated from there. The police force and the servicemen then shot into the crowd of protesters. So protesters Joe York, Coleman Lenny, and Joe de Blasio, who I think were like all under the age of early 20s.
Okay.
They were killed, and at least 22 others were injured by the first barrage of gunfire. Mm-hmm. So the leaders of the demonstration decided to finally call it quits and organized a rapid retreat.
All right.
But a man named Harry Bennett, who we've mentioned before.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know anything, these historical figures, but I've heard that name within the last 35 minutes.
I was proud of you. So he was the head of Ford's service, and he drove up, rolled down his window, or however they opened car windows back in the 30s.
It was a roll. I'm sure it wasn't power.
No, but it might have been like shimmying it down.
Might have been a flap.
Yeah, I got to unhook from the top and lay it flat.
Something.
So he decided to fire into the retreating crowd. So people began pelting him with rocks. And, how sad for Bennett. He was injured. So he got out of his car and started shooting into the crowd more with his pistol.
Terrific.
Which apparently wasn't enough. So the Dearborn police and the servicemen decided he needed backup for, his defense because he was injured.
Okay.
So they opened fire into the crowd with machine guns.
I was worried there's going to be like a Tommy gun action here. Mm-hmm. It's the 30s and all.
So because we have the weeping 30s or whatever you call them. So because we have always... 30s. Yes. Because we have always needed military-grade weapons in the hands of police officers and civilians. Mm-hmm. Nothing can go wrong.
Nope.
Except for a 4th death. As the crowd was fleeing from the gunfire, a 16-year-old boy named Joe Bessel was killed and dozens more were injured.
Okay.
By the end of what became known as the Ford Massacre, 4 people were dead and over 50 wounded, and 1 man was left in a critical condition who died later from his wounds. And I can tell you were concerned for Harry. He was hospitalized for his injuries from the unruly protesters.
Oh, my God.
Along with about 25 police officers that were injured. Mm-hmm. But none of them were injured by gunfire.
Yeah, rocks usually just require like Band-Aids, maybe a stitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I haven't heard of that model of car yet either. The Ford Massacre. Is that coming out in 2024? No?
Too soon. So there were 48 seriously wounded protesters that were being treated for their wounds, too, in the local hospitals. Mm-hmm. Isn't that nice?
Is it the Ford Hospital? That's probably not going to go well for them.
No, it didn't go well for them anyway, because they were getting treatment while they were handcuffed to their hospital beds because all of them were seriously wounded and arrested.
For protesting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I think they were just being unruly about it.
Yeah, disturbing the peace.
And they were disturbing the peace.
Yeah, I get that.
Officers were injured.
They got in the way of a firefighter hose. That's probably like a detriment to life-saving maneuvers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the road was on fire below them.
Yes, they were just trying to put
They were
it out.
impeding a fire rescue. That's probably a crime.
Not a single police officer or serviceman was arrested.
Well, nobody's going to turn around and be like, hey, stop it. Get over here, you.
No. But good cops will stop a bad cop, right?
Maybe.
Despite all the reliable evidence that they fired willy-nilly truck driver into the crowd of thousands that resulted in deaths and bodily harm. So none of them were arrested. Mm-hmm. The following day, rumors were running through national papers that 4 police officers had been shot and that 6 shots had been fired from a member of the Communist Party and that the Communist Party leaders were facing murder trials.
Okay.
Most of this information came from Harry Bennett.
Okay.
And then more information came in, and the Detroit Free Press had to backpedal and change their narrative, so at least they corrected themselves after getting better information. Mm-hmm. We don't know what that's like. So anyway, the news...
I feel like I don't know shit about the Free Press, but I feel like it's always been considered pretty reputable.
Yeah, I use the Detroit Free Press for a lot of things, but it's also like something sensational happened. It was linked to communists. Mm-hmm. There was police brutality that got lied about.
You would have thought. I'm surprised they didn't take the film crews with them for this. They did?
Just listen.
Good. Okay, good. I'm trying to listen. You stopped.
So anyway, the newspaper started sharing news that if the handling of the protest was blundered and that leaders had warned of possible violence against them and to remain peaceful. So they found more reliable sources and they were like, okay, well, the police lied. We should report the actual goings on. Mm-hmm. Speaking of reliable sources, from Wikipedia, the most reliable of sources.
Our modern day free pass.
Mm-hmm. Detroit prosecutors convened a grand jury to investigate the violence. By the end of June, they completed their investigation and issued a report stating, quote, after hearing many witnesses on both sides of the matter, the grand jury finds no legal grounds for indictments. However, we find that the conduct of the demonstrators was ill-considered and unlawful in their utter disregard for constituted authority. We find further that the conduct of the Dearborn City Police when they first met the demonstrators, though well-intended, might have been more discreet and better considered before they applied force in their form of tear gas. However, we believe that the said police discharged what they conscientiously considered to be their sworn duty as law enforcing officials, alike when they intercepted the rioters at the city's limits, using tear gas, and in the critical and violent situation which ensued, employing gunfire to protect life and property, which were then manifestly endangered.
Okay, so they're siding heavily with the cops.
The grand jury?
Yeah.
So one grand juror who dissented, it also sounds like literally everything that happened in 2020. Oh my gosh, those rioters, they're destroying Target. Target's a multi-billion-dollar company. I think it's going to be okay.
Okay.
Anyway. One grand juror who dissented the decisions of his fellow jurors, he said that the administration is, quote, the most biased, prejudiced, and ignorant proceedings imaginable, and another grand juror said that she had witnessed the most glaring discrimination of the parts of the prosecutors in the treatment of witnesses. So no one was charged with any acts of violence or murder except for protesters.
Shocked. I'm truly shocked.
Have it made you bitter yet?
Me? I'm just indifferent.
That's worse.
Yes.
So on March 12th, there's
no point of being bitter 97 years later. It's not going to do me any good. Just when I go to buy a car, I'll probably be like, fuck Ford.
Yep.
We don't own any Fords.
No, we don't.
So I'm not, like, I've never considered, taking this into consideration. And, whatever. Buy whatever the fuck you want. But still, I don't think there's a Chevy Massacre that I know of. They're probably not a great company either, General Motors, but who knows? It can't be this bad. I don't think they're friends with Hitler.
Yeah, they weren't ran by actual white supremacists.
Well, now they have a monopoly of the hospitals, so hoorah.
So on March 12th, there was yet another March. Sorry.
A march to the Munchies.
So it was estimated that...
Is this like a week later?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Good. Let's not let this little scuffle deter us.
Just wait. An estimated 25,000 to 60,000 people showed up for the funeral procession of the 4 dead marchers.
Who did these estimates? That is way too big of a margin.
That is a very
25 to 60,000?
Mm-hmm. This is just it was hard because this is the procession. So this is going from the funeral home and people lined the streets.
Yeah.
Like lined the streets.
That's just a big difference.
There was no seeing anything between them. So I'm sure estimates were really hard. Also footage that you'd have to go back to count.
Yeah, it's not like you can take a picture and go back and count heads.
So these 4 dead marchers, they were buried side by side.
They were not 4 dead marchers.
Not for this march. They were previous marchers.
Yeah.
4 dead previous marchers.
They didn't take them out and walk them along with them. That's not how that worked. For dramatic effect, that could have been very useful.
It's the inspiration for the Abbey Road.
Yes, yeah. But wow.
That is John Lennon's funeral, isn't it? Because dead men don't wear shoes.
Yeah, but still, anyway.
Sorry.
It's fine. The 4 dead marchers.
So
the zombie style.
They were buried alongside one another in the Woodmere Cemetery in Detroit. Mm-hmm. The slogan for their march was "Smash the Ford Murphy Terror." Murphy was the mayor of the time, and after the massacre, he disavowed patients being cuffed to their hospital beds and denounced Harry Bennett as an inhumane brute and called Henry Ford a terrible man, which we've discussed.
Okay.
He is.
So that's a good stance.
Yep. And then an estimated 80,000 people met the funeral procession at Woodmere Cemetery. So 25 to 60,000 people
over 100,000
walked
people.
Okay. for these funerals.
Uh-huh.
So that was the march. So the band played the International, which is a Russian resistance song with the lyrics, "Arise, ye prisoners of starvation."
Okay. Probably hit a little close to home.
Yep.
Intentionally so.
And they did speeches. There were people that were talking about, they used their funeral to further their
rally
cause.
Cry.
Yeah. Which if I were to die in a protest, please use my funeral as a rallying cry.
I will martyr the shit out of you.
That is my only hope and dream. Thank you.
It's the sweetest thing you've ever said to me.
So after the protests and funerals, the Workers' Film and Photo League released a 7-minute short newsreel with footage from the protest, the police brutality, and the funeral, which you can still find it today. The footage is one of the first social documentary films in the United States, and most of the original film rolls of it had been lost or destroyed, but sections of it were found in archives and private collections, and the film was restored to its original continuity. So you can find it on YouTube today.
Oh, wow.
I watched it.
I watched it.
The film is titled Detroit Workers' New Special 1932 Ford Massacre. And it shows footage of bread lines and the effects of the Great Depression on the city of Detroit. And it shows footage from the rally just the month before of crowds, people there was another rally on February 4th, and it showed crowds of people surrounding a tiny box platform that could hold maybe 2 or 3 people giving speeches just in a throng of human bodies. Mm-hmm. And they were protesting President Hoover's and Mayor Murphy's, quote, starvation programs.
Okay.
So police are seen on the edge of the crowd pushing and shoving protesters of the Ford Massacre march. And then it cuts to Dearborn in March of 1932 and the police brutality. And the footage shows protesters fleeing and running over train tracks to get away from the tear gas canisters and bullets. And the 7 minutes of film show groups of police officers surrounding singled out protesters and beating them with billy clubs, all while they're curled up in balls on the steel train tracks. So it's not even in the streets. They're getting beat on train tracks.
Isolated, yeah.
And it shows footage of the 4 literal teenagers dead in their coffins paired with footage of the crowd following the funeral procession and attending their funeral. And because this story has everything wrong with it, in June, the marcher that was in critical condition died from his injuries. His name was Curtis Williams. But because of segregation, he couldn't be buried next to his comrades who died for their freedom and workers' rights. And so the funeral committee hired a plane to scatter his ashes over Woodmere Cemetery, or according to some sources, over the Rogue River. And then in 1992, a local chapter of the UAW collected funds to install 5 new headstones for the 5 men who sacrificed their lives, and all 5 were placed at the gravesite of the 4 fallen victims, including Curtis Williams.
Okay, good.
And each of the gravestones were engraved with the words, "He gave his life for the Union." And that is the Ford hunger, demonstration / Ford Massacre. Yeah. So, fight for your unions, guys.
Right? That's crazy that you, it's so close to home. I've never even heard of that.
Yeah.
That's just something that should be taught as Michigan history, but of course it is not.
No, why would it be?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, sources, workers.org article, 77th anniversary of the Ford Hunger March of 1932, DetroitNews.com article, How the Great Depression Changed Detroit, ejumpcut.org, which is a jump cut special section. They go over the Film and Photo League radical cinema of the 1930s. So if you wanted to deep dive in that, it's long. Mm-hmm. And then Capita, Ford Hunger March, and then YouTube. I did find that footage. It's called the Detroit Workers' New Special 1932 Ford Massacre, and it's done by the Workers' Film and Photo League International. Because they're restoring all of it. Nice. And, yep. That's the massacre.
That's my story.
Yep. Did you have a dad joke at all? Or am I putting you on the spot?
No,
no.
I don't think I did.
Yeah. Was this too heavy of an episode?
No. No, it wasn't. I just forgot about the dad joke thing.
Oh, no.
You don't get them every week. Just whenever I hear a good one.
Have you heard a good one?
No, I told you the bird one last time.
Oh, you should tell them your new favorite tagline.
No. I do have the Star Wars one. Do you want? Because we made a Star Wars reference.
We did. Go for it.
I think I already told you this one.
Sure. I have no idea.
Why didn't Hans like his steak?
Why?
Because it was chewy. I did tell you that one, didn't I?
You did, yes.
Okay, good. It's a bad one.
Yep.
But you made a Star Wars reference, so that's all you get.
Okay. On that note, if you've made it this far,
I'm sorry.
Congratulations.
Anyway, and bonus pod will be out. This is coming out the 28th, so sometime this week.
$1 will get you it. $5 will get you it, and a pin.
$1 will get you it and all of its 20-some friends.
Yep.
All the other bonus podcasts at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you.
How polite of you.
Thank you.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye. Oof, that was terrible. Thanks for listening to our terrible podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at TMSTPod.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon at Tell Me Something Terrible.